Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Well, the long shadow of the Syrian war and the refugee crisis it's created is looming over the UK's own debate about future relations with Europe. Free movement, border security and national sovereignty have become the cornerstones of David Cameron's draft reform deal with the EU. Today he made a direct appeal to Eurosceptics, insisting Britain would succeed more as a country if it stayed in. But is his deal as big a success as he claims? We'll hear from the Prime Minister in a moment. But first, our political editor Gary Gibbon reports.
Months of short-haul flights around Europe are nearly, but not quite, over. Yesterday, the Prime Minister did a brash, bold sell of his draft agreement with the EU. Today, he came face-to-face with his toughest critics, MPs on his own side.
I would argue if you look across this, you can see you've got welfare powers coming back, you've got immigration powers coming back that I've just spoken about, you've got bailout powers coming back.
That was an answer to Boris Johnson, the Mayor of London, who's widely expected to join David Cameron's side in the referendum in a late dramatic gesture. David Cameron signalled he'd publish a bill soon asserting Parliament's sovereignty.
To put beyond doubt that this House of Commons is sovereign, and that is something we will look to do at the same time as concluding these negotiations.
In all, 24 Tory MPs took this opportunity to rubbish David Cameron's negotiation, effectively declaring themselves for coming out.
The thin gruel has been further watered down, Mr. Speaker. My right honourable friend has a fortnight, I think, in which to salvage his reputation as a negotiator.
If this grudging and threadbare deal is the very best that the EU are prepared to concede to us, what serious hope is there of meaningful renegotiation once we're tied in, or if and when we're tied in long term?
Every step of these negotiations, unfortunately, still relies on somebody else giving us permission to make decisions for this country.
Like many of the newspapers blasting Mr Cameron's draft agreement this morning, quite a few Tory MPs appear to be unreachable. Mr Cameron's focus now is speaking to voters over their heads while trying to keep the debate civil.
On areas of our own laws and our own borders, whether we want them to be determined here by ourselves or overseas by someone else.
I'm sure he'll join me in echoing the old insurance advert that we shouldn't turn a drama into a crisis. I think that would be the right approach.
And then this advice to MPs.
Don't take a view because of, what your constituency association might say, or you're worried about a boundary review, or you think it might be advantageous this way or that way. Do what's in your heart. If you think it's right for Britain, then do that.
Does he now agree that once this smoke and mirrors sideshow deal is finally done, we'll get on with it, end the uncertainty, and the referendum will indeed be held on June the 23rd, 2016?
Not if the SNP government in Scotland has anything to do with it. Along with the Welsh and Northern Ireland administrations, they say that date is too close to their elections in May. The Prime Minister hopes to press on anyway, with the deal including some prizes like the red card allowing 15 parliaments to link up and stop European law, which he and his allies have mocked in the past.
Even if the European Commission were to propose the slaughter of the firstborn, it would be very difficult to achieve such a remarkable conjunction of parliamentary votes.
Earlier I caught up with the Prime Minister and I started by asking him about the emergency brake on in-work benefits for EU migrant workers. On the emergency brake on in-work benefits, you couldn't get quite what you wanted, but you'd argue you've got something that matches it.
Well, it's, I think, significant. People said to me, you'll never get a break that can last for 4 years, you'll never get an end to something for nothing, you'll never be able to restrict benefits to migrants coming here to work. And actually, we are on the way to achieving those things. So I think it's a big breakthrough, and you combine that with the other changes that say we can now crack down on the criminals, the fraudsters, the sham marriages, the people trying to go round our immigration rules, and these are good changes.
So on the emergency brake on in-work benefits, can you guarantee that after a year of being in operation, net migration from the EU will come down?
Well, I believe it will have an effect on net migration because if you take the figures today, you've got on average the 40% coming here accessing the in-work benefits are getting on average about £6,000 each. That is a big incentive
So
to
make a
come to
pledge,
Britain.
1 year, 2 years, whatever, that it will actually reduce
Yes,
EU
I
net
believe it
migration.
will.
You
I believe it
absolutely
will.
make that pledge.
Yes,
the numbers will come down.
I believe they will, yes, because at the moment there's a big financial incentive on top of the jobs that are available in our economy. Over 10,000 people are getting more than £10,000 a year of in-work benefits instantly. And it's about the migration, but it's also about fairness. People want to know that this is a country that won't give you something for nothing. You can't instantly come here and access our welfare system. You should pay in before you get out. And I think that is a very fair value that we should be promoting in our system.
This is a one-off, isn't it, that they're going to allow us a special emergency period during which we can phase in rather than ban.
But this is where more clarity
reduce the
is needed.
benefits.
If you read the documents, you'll see very clearly there is a facility for an emergency break. They're saying that Britain qualifies. They're saying you can restrict benefits for up to 4 years, but then it's not clear how long the break lasts, how it can be renewed, how long renewal periods are for, and that obviously is important work we need to do at the February European Council.
But during those 4 years, presumably you're going to redesign the welfare system to try and make sure that the British welfare system does what you're trying to do.
Well, I think there are two. I think it's a very good point. I think there are two opportunities here. One is, I think, trying to make sure our welfare system is as fair as possible in terms of making sure people pay in before they get out. I think that is an opportunity. I think the second opportunity, of course, the longer this emergency break is in place, the more opportunities there will be to argue for permanent mechanisms in future treaties.
The red card that you're talking about that parliaments can bring in, you've seen the footage probably by now. It's a few years old, but quite worth watching again. You're sitting next to William Hague, and he's mocking the whole idea of managing to get 15 parliaments lined up at the right time to show a red card, and you're laughing away behind him. He's mocking it. What's changed? Nothing.
Well, what's changed is the idea of a red card where you're not just delaying legislation, but you're actually blocking it. And the chance of...
That wasn't the joke
I think that
he was
is
laughing at, or you were laughing. You were both laughing at the whole improbability of getting 15 parliaments lined up in 12 weeks flat.
Well, I don't think it is a difficult
All agreeing
thing.
the
I don't
same
think
thing?
it's a difficult thing to do. In the age of the internet, of email, of parliaments being able to link up to each other digitally, to say that a proposal comes forward that a number of parliaments disagree with, and they have the power absolutely to block it, not to delay it, not to ask the council to think again, but to block it. This is an enhancement for national parliaments. It'll encourage them to work together. If you want a more democratic Europe where we trust our national parliaments, it's a good step forward. I don't oversell this. It's one element in the important sovereignty package where we're making sure that we have our institutions have a say.
When you go round national leaders and speak nicely to them and properly woo them, you get somewhere in Europe. The system works.
Well, I think that the system works, and I'm very keen that it does work, that you can say when you've got fundamental national interests that you feel are under threat, that this organisation has got to be flexible enough to respond.
No longer a Eurosceptic, now a born-again Europhile?
No, I am a sceptic in the true sense of the word. I'm sceptical about all organisations and all institutions, and think we should ask very carefully, is this institution working for me? Now, what we're going to get, I believe, at the end of this process is the best of both worlds, where we can say we're not going to join the single currency, we're not going to take down our borders, we're not part of an ever closer union, but we are part of a single market. We're part of an organisation where we can enhance both our prosperity and our security. And that is because of a healthy dose of scepticism in achieving what's right for Britain.
Prime Minister talking to our political editor, Gary Gibbon.